Oh, hey, Ghoulash here, reviewing another Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode for October. In this vid, I'll be covering Treehouse of Horror 6, which aired October 29th, 1995 as part of The Simpsons' 7th season.
Oh, lousy smarch weather.
At this point, the creators of the show aren't bothering with wraparound segments of any kind. The intro is just a quick vignette with Krusty the Clown as the Headless Horseman for some reason, followed by a touching couch gag of the Simpsons family getting executed. Quick and gets the job done. The Treehouse of Horror episodes are stuffed to the point where there just isn't room for anything but the segments. Treehouse of Horror 5 was admittedly a tough act to follow, and the Treehouse of Horror episodes are among the most difficult Simpsons episodes to make. So you can tell at this point the original staff of The Simpsons is starting to get burned out on doing these annual Halloween specials. But Treehouse of Horror 6 is still a great episode with a lot of gems.
Dude, you're huge! Yeah, let's party, baby!
The first segment of the episode is Attack of the 50-Foot Eyesores, the title of which is a parody of Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. But the segment itself is a broad satire of giant monster movies in general, along with commercialism.
The chain that put the fat in fat southern sheriffs.
Homer, one of the many suckers under capitalism, takes Lard Lad Donuts' claim of selling colossal donuts literally and wants to get even stealing the mascot's donut. Interestingly, this non-canon episode is actually the first appearance of Lard Lad Donuts, whose mascot is a parody of Big Boy, which has become a background fixture in the show ever since, even getting a real-world recreation at Universal Studios. Anyway, coincidentally, lightning strikes the Lard Lad and his fellow mascots, who all come to life, causing death and destruction in their wake. Something that's kind of bothered me is the segment strongly implies Kent Brockman's Billboard mascot brutally kills him, but he's shown alive at the end of the segment. I mean, what are we to believe? That this is some sort of a magic newscaster or something?
Let me go! No! Stop! No! Even as I speak, the scourge of advertising could be heading toward your town.
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder. The segment overall is very light on story and low on horror. It's mainly just a series of loosely connected sight gags depicting the chaos the monster advertisements wreak upon the town.
Chief, that wasn't a monster. That was the captain of the high school basketball team.
Yeah, he was turning into a monster, though.
But the gags are really funny. You don't normally get to see this level of havoc happen in an episode of The Simpsons, so it is really entertaining. Eventually, though, this segment builds up to Lisa seeking aid from the ad agency that created the monsters, who come up with a catchy jingle to kill the monsters, sung by Paul Anka.
Just don't look, just don't look.
The only way to kill off an annoying ad is to stop paying attention to it. Just don't look. This advice applies to a lot of things, but often isn't heeded. For instance, if you don't like Disney's shitty live-action remakes of their beloved animated films, don't pay any attention to them, don't talk about them, don't watch the trailer, and especially don't see the movie. Just don't look, or you're only contributing to the problem. Attack of the 50-Foot Eyesores is the weakest segment in Treehouse of Horror 6, but it's got some memorable gags, and it is a fun watch. I give Attack of the 50-Foot Eyesores 4 treehouses out of 5.
Oh, Shazbut.
On the flip side, the episode's second segment is easily its strongest. Nightmare at Evergreen Terrace, an obvious parody of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, where groundskeeper Willie is cast as Freddy Krueger, attacking Springfield children in their sleep.
What a rare acquaintance.
The segment effectively captures the visual style and tone of a Nightmare on Elm Street film. From Alf Clausen's approximation of Nightmare on Elm Street's musical score down to groundskeeper Willie's one-liners.
When I'm done with you, they'll have to do a post-mortem.
Willie's origins as a killer color him much more sympathetically than Freddy, though.
Do not touch Willie. Good advice.
While Freddy was a child murderer who got his comeuppance, groundskeeper Willie's death was due to the school's bureaucracy, cutting corners at the expense of safety.
We charge fire extinguishers. Now this is a free service of the fire department.
Nay.
Who wouldn't want to get revenge for that?
I don't like the idea of Millhouse having 2 spaghetti meals in one day.
Ironically, the 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street remake seemed to crib a lot of details from this parody for its vision of Freddy, and is painted in a more sympathetic light as unjustly burned alive, though it does turn out later that he definitely was justly burned alive.
You'll pay for this with your children's blood!
Oh, right. How you gonna get him? Skeleton power?
Despite being a parody of Nightmare on Elm Street, the segment doesn't recreate any nightmares seen in the films, thankfully instead just coming up with totally original ones that manage to be creepy on their own. But the segment, of course, borrows the formula of a Freddy film, where one character has to stay awake to keep another alive, but, of course, the other character falls asleep anyway.
Not asleep, I'm just resting my eye. Uh-oh.
The defeat of Willie in the segment is a lot more simple compared to any of Freddy's deaths in the movies, though, which tended to be really abstract. Here, Maggie just blows Willie up. Don't you hate it when your Willie blows up prematurely? The epilogue of the segment ends with a bit of a commentary on the decline of Freddy Krueger as a villain. Willie does return very quickly, but he's a lot less menacing this time around. Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace is one of the classic Treehouse of Horror segments, and the best segment of this episode, featuring a fantastic, creative, creepy, and funny parody of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
It's best the children don't see him. Oh, just get it out of here.
I give Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace 5 treehouses out of 5.
Not into the kindergarten.
The final segment of the episode is also a highlight of the Treehouse of Horror series, Homer Cubed, but it mostly stands out as memorable purely for its animation.
What's going on here? I'm so bulgy.
While trying to hide during an interminable visit from his sister-in-laws, Patty and Selma, Homer discovers a passageway to the third dimension, featuring an amazing, seamless transition from 2D to 3D animation.
Oh, heavenly testament to the eternal majesty of God's creation. Holy macaroni!
The story is essentially just Homer exploring and trying to escape from this virtual world while Professor Frink and other Springfield citizens attempt to save him in the 2D world.
Here is an ordinary square.
Whoa, slow down, Egghead.
And that's it. Now, the 3D animation of this segment today seems really quaint, but you gotta understand, this episode came out nearly 30 years ago. It came out the same year as the original Toy Story, the first full-length CG motion picture. The CG animation on display in the segment was a really big deal. The segment is mostly just a showcase of what 3D animation could do, though, like a video game tech demo.
Ow! Watch it, Coney!
It's mostly just Homer looking at 3D objects in a virtual world, even passing by the library for Myst. Remember that video game? If you're under 20, you probably don't. Computer animation was still an emerging industry, and it took stuff like Toy Story and this segment to really legitimize it as an art form. The segment itself was animated by Pacific Data Images, a very technical sounding name, but you probably know them better as the studio that would later become DreamWorks Animation, which began work on Ants a few months after this episode aired. The tech demo aspects of the segment are crude, but PDI did a great job converting Homer Simpson to a 3D character. And with the consultation of the show's 2D animators, the studio faithfully recreated Homer's mannerisms in 3D.
This place looks expensive. I feel like I'm wasting a fortune just standing here.
There was concern about figuring out how to convert Homer and Bart, who are very unconventional 2D characters, into 3D characters, but PDI realized that that problem had already been solved by merchandise, using vinyl figures to model their CG renditions. Having a 3D segment like this in the biggest cartoon of the 90s definitely got people paying attention more to computer animation. It could be fluid and expressive, not geometric and stiff. The segment was even shown in a 2000 IMAX anthology film called Cyberworld 3D, showcasing cutting-edge 3D tech, but it can also be said that 3D animation has become too prevalent today, especially in theaters, leading to a decline in 2D animation.
Oops.
But you know, nearly 30 years after this innovative segment's debut, The Simpsons is still 2D animated, so Homer Cube definitely didn't contribute to the death of 2D animation on its own show.
Piece of cake, son.
The segment ends with Homer being sucked into another dimension after Bart's failed rescue. Our own dimension. And, you know, it's a treat to see Homer in the real world buying erotic cakes on a shitty street in LA. This also marks the first of very few uses of live action in The Simpsons.
Ooh, erotic cakes.
Homer³ is a highlight of Treehouse of Horror, mainly for its historical significance, but it's still fun to watch to see this early 90s approach to 3D using one of the most iconic cartoon characters of the 90s. It's not a very funny segment, and it's especially not scary, but it's just a fun little animation experiment that has had a long-lasting influence. I give Homer³ 4 Treehouses out of 5.
Homie.
Be strong, Marge. I'm sure he's gone to a better place.
Treehouse of Horror 6 wasn't going to be able to top its predecessor, but it's still a classic episode. It's not as gruesome, dark, or funny as previous Simpsons Halloween specials, but it's got one really great segment, some funny gags, and a historically significant piece of animation history, so I give Treehouse of Horror 6 overall 4 Treehouses out of 5. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel, The Ghoulash, which will be coming out with new videos soon. I swear. Link in the description to watch the ones that are up now. Anyway, that's it for me, Ghoulash. See you all next time, you fucking weirdos. If you liked this video, like it, and if you loved it, click the subscribe and bell buttons for more vids. I'd also like to thank these fine folks pledged my shout-out tier on Patreon for all their kind support. Videos like this wouldn't be possible without all their help. Thank you for watching, see you next time. Dr. Wolfula signing out.